All right. And again, as we talk about all these different options when it comes to lending, the number one most important part is having a plan for what you want to do with the funds and making sure that you can pay it back. Okay. Don't just go out there like a lot of people and just try to get all this financing thinking that, oh, I'm free, I'm good. I'm going to put it on my business. The stronger that you have in terms of payment history, building these relationships with these lenders, it'll open up so many more doors. And that leads us to our next topic, which is about the business credit cards. All right. Now, when it comes to business credit cards, this is something that, many of you probably already know. There are 0% interest options when it comes to business credit cards, as well as there are a lot higher interest options when it comes to the business credit cards. So it really comes down to your personal credit and also which particular banks you work with. Because a lot of these banks will still try to pull a fast one on you, even when you have a good credit file. I have a client that we took him to one particular bank, and with an 811 score, they still charge him 20% interest. Okay. But another bank gave him a 0% interest. Now, this is the picture that you need to understand when it comes to this whole process with interest rates for all these different types of deals. Interest rates are important, but what you're using the money for is the most important. Okay. Because if you know that it's going to lead you to making, another 50 or 100K to your business, whether it be over the course of a year or even over the course of a month, don't worry as much about how high each interest rate is. Okay. Because again, it comes back to the project. Now, in some scenarios, the interest rate is too high and it could put you in a situation where you're paying back more than you should be. So we always try to get you the lowest possible interest rates that there are. But keep in mind, it's always about what you're using the funds for as the first and most important piece to the puzzle. Okay. So the other part of that too is when you're looking at getting business credit cards, when you have a business that's been established for even a few months or even a year, okay, you're going to be in a situation where you get maybe smaller business credit cards. Can you still get them? 100%. Yes, you can. Okay. But they may not be as high. So the chances of you getting like, $100,000 business credit card, can it be done? Yes, but it's very low percentage unless you have a strong relationship with the bankers and they really see the vision of where you're going. So that's why when we go through our funding process, it's not a normal route. Okay. We work directly with the top bankers so that we're able to get you the top options. All right. So when it comes to getting those business credit cards, your revolving personal debt is extremely important. Okay. You don't want to have a bunch of high usage on your personal credit. If you do, getting business credit cards is extremely difficult. All right. So if you're in that situation, it's almost better that we work on that first. We have different options on how to handle that. So that way you can put yourself in a better situation. And there's a lot of ways to deal with this. So if you are in that predicament, you don't have to be, down on yourself. Normally what that does when you have the high credit card usage, it puts your score around that 650 to like 657, 660 range. Okay. So if you're in that situation, you probably already know what's going on. Now, when we go through this process of getting business credit cards, you want to have all that stuff at the lowest possible interest rate. It's similar to the business lines of credit where you have, under 20% on the usage side. Okay. So definitely want to do that beforehand. The other piece to getting those business credit cards is the annual percentage rate. So you always want to make sure that that's a good situation for you that you can handle, as well as any type of annual fees, because sometimes they do have higher annual fees per business credit card and it could hit you at the wrong time. So if you're dealing with a particular bank and you decide, hey, I want to get, a larger business credit card with you, keep in mind those annual fees you have to adjust and keep track of that, because when you first sign up for the business credit card, they have that listed in your agreement. So you know exactly what that is, but you want to make sure that you understand all the fees and when they're due. because they can come up at the wrong time. Okay. Now, another part of that process is understanding the limits, because certain banks have a minimum limit that they deal with and a maximum limit. Okay. So if you're dealing with certain banks that normally don't give out large limits unless you have an extremely long history with them, those are places that may be a little harder if you're looking to get a large amount of money now. But in our situation, we work to get you options there where a lot of the lenders that we work with don't require as long of a history with them to get approved for a larger amount. Now, another piece to that is when you want to get these business credit cards, you have to make sure that you build the entire relationship with the bank. Okay. So can you get a business credit card without it? 100%. Yes, you can. But the stronger you build the relationship with that particular bank, the further you'll get. So let's say if that bank is a bank like Bank of America, for example. In that situation, you want to make sure you have a really good history with them. So you would have a bank account, whether it's personal side, a business account, savings account. So that way they see that you're invested. And more importantly, they see that money is coming to their particular bank. So they know that the deposits are going to be there. And that allows them to feel a lot more comfortable giving you larger and larger and larger amounts of credit. Okay. Especially if you're maintaining good balances on your other credit cards. All right. So another piece to this is if your personal credit cards have, again, a high balance, or you have a lot of late payments on them, all these reasons can lead to you getting either declined or a much lower offer than you really are worthy of. Okay. Even when you have good income. All right. So all these things are to be taken in consideration when it comes to getting the business credit cards. But can you get them? 100%. And I recommend any new entrepreneur, especially if you're in that 2-year mark or under, you want to have a lot of options on the business credit card front. Some of the banks, like Amex, allows you to get multiple with them. Okay. And you can do that with a lot of other banks, but you want to have multiple options on business credit cards so that way you can function. Because if you choose to be in a situation where you just got one card, remember, they can close your card for any reason. Okay. It doesn't even have to make sense. And a lot of them won't give you any explanation. They'll just close the card without any explanation, and they'll just send you, a bill in the mail saying you owe them whatever the balance was. All right. So it's very important that when you get these business credit cards that you have several of them to work with, because like the option with the equipment financing, majority of the time you can have yourself in a situation where those business credit cards do not report on your personal credit report. They actually report on the business side. Okay. So that'll actually help you build up the business credit once you start working with Dun & Bradstreet, which we'll talk about, as we go through the different podcasts. Okay. So you want to get as many of the business credit cards as possible, because the traditional thought is, I don't want business credit cards. I only want cash. But the problem, again, comes back to when you pay off your loans, you have to reapply and start over. But when you pay your business credit cards, you can use the money immediately. Okay. So that's why it's always an option to keep that process going. So regardless of what level you are at business wise, whether you're making 50 million a year or 500,000 a year, or even way lower, even if you just started the business credit cards are always the best option to get things rolling, because not only do they have a situation where you're able to have, keep using the funds, but also your monthly payment will normally be a lot better on business credit cards than pretty much any other type of lending. Okay. So you're usually going to have a lot smaller amount that you have to pay, because you can have a business credit card for 50,000 and you may be paying $400 to $600 a month, versus if you have a loan for 50,000, you could be in a situation where you're paying anywhere between $800 to as high as $25,000 or $3,000 a month, depending upon the lender. Okay, so that's why you always want to make sure that you stack up the business credit cards, as many as you can, and that's what we kind of help you with as you grow. All right. And this just keeps basically gives you that cushion so that when unexpected payroll hits, or you get the lawsuit, or some big client stops at the wrong time, or your employee quits on you, and that causes all these other problems where now you got other people working out of term and out of position. All those times you're going to need to have those extra funds. When things go wrong, you need to have those funds. And that's why having those cards are a lot easier to get approved for, because most of the times for the requirement side, they don't require as many docs. So you may not have to have a bunch of paperwork to get through in getting the larger credit cards. Now, when you want to get those, 80K or usually above 50K, you'll start to see where they want to have a lot more paperwork in terms of taxes, or even sometimes, like I said before, the profit and loss, balance sheet, things like that could come up. But for the most part, you probably won't deal with that as long as you kind of keep things orderly. All right. So in this situation, you want to try to get as many of the business credit cards as possible, so you're able to grow and kind of sustain things while you figure this out. The other benefit of having the business credit cards, unlike all the other options that we talked about before, is that they don't put a lien on your business. So a lot of people don't talk about this part, okay? But when you get a loan or a line of credit, in a lot of situations, that lender will put a lien on your business because they want to make sure that if you go bankrupt or anything goes wrong, they get a certain amount of money out of the deal. If you sell this business to someone else, they want to make sure they get a certain amount out of the deal. Okay. So it's really important that you understand that, because when other banks see the lien, you could get declined depending upon how their underwriting guidelines work, where they may not be able to approve you for as much because you already have a pre-existing arrangement with another bank. Okay. Versus when you have the credit cards, you'll be able to keep having a lot of options, and then you can kind of build up from there. And all of this will still be able to report on your business credit report. So that's why we recommend the business credit cards.